Good morning, Kabibal, and welcome to our Facebook Live learning session. For the discussion today, our topic will be on teaching comprehension of informational text. Before we begin, take note of the following reminders. Make sure you are registered to the webinar to have your e-certificate of participation. Visit certificate.vivalgroup.com to generate your proof of attendance. Place your question on the comment box allotted during the session, and they will be addressed by our speaker later on. Share the video using hashtag LearnAs1PH as our official hashtag to our Vibal webinars. Experience learning, Kabibal. And now, to proceed with our webinar this morning, it is my pleasure to introduce to you our distinguished speaker for this morning. Our speaker this morning is a consultant and evaluator of K-12 Philippine Basic Education Curriculum and an academic consultant for Sisters of Mary Philippines. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Brother Roderick Aguirre.
Good morning, viewers, Facebook Live viewers. Good morning again, and it's a pleasure to be with you in this beautiful sunny day here in Cavite. Though I'm not really sure with your weather in your own respective places, but nonetheless, I hope that today will be a fruitful day for every one of us and learn a lot from each other's experience. Although at this point, being doing online webinar and just being projected via Facebook Live. I believe that this becomes, and the first process will become a one-way process where I keep on talking about concepts and on teaching comprehension of informational text to our students. And you guys out there are listening to me and having probably some questions, more questions as I go along with my discussion. But I'm encouraging you all with that. I would like to encourage you, if you have questions, queries and clarifications you would like me to address, do so by keying your questions and your concerns in the comments box below. All right, so let me share my PowerPoint presentation with you. Okay, I would like to begin with the premise that I already had the Vibal Edu Services already came up with previous webinars and previous trainings on the teaching of reading, the teaching of beginning reading, all the other basics of reading though. And I assume that if you have not, I hope that you would have the time to visit those and be able to connect what I'm discussing right now and the things that I've discussed within the week, because I already talked about comprehending. I think that was a week ago that I discussed teaching comprehension of narrative texts. And our assumption for teaching comprehension in this particular groups of types of texts would be based on the premise that our students already gone through explicit teaching of reading. That's why after my topic today on teaching comprehension informational text, this will be my platform to continue on to the next topic tonight on teaching comprehension across subject areas. Again, the premise would be that our students already had explicit teaching on comprehending informational and narrative text. Now, if you have not gone through those trainings, especially on the narratives or comprehending narratives, please visit my training on that, my webinar on that. It was last week. Okay. So today I don't have shout outs. No one has requested for me to give shout outs. So we'll just proceed to my presentation. So teaching comprehension of informational text is mostly helping our young and adult learners understand and appreciate content-based texts. A lot of our students out there struggle so much with understanding and extracting information, not just being interested to it on selections that are information based. Reason being is that it lacks elements of of a narrative text. A narrative text is more entertaining in that purpose. Unlike for informational text, the purpose of the informational text is more of to inform, to argue, to persuade people, or to educate people on a certain topic or issue that uh, people or readers would want to know more about. Unlike in stories, although it also would educate certain cultural and social elements, it is primarily to start entertaining people, all right, or the readers, and appeal to the affect. So we'll proceed with the following outline. So we will start again. So for the month of August, this is one of my additional element in my presentation. We will start with an introduction, which is more basically on trying to bust out myths about teaching listening and reading comprehension. What are the misconceptions out there of how we deal with the teaching of listening and listening and reading comprehension to our students. So we're gonna do that. And then once we're done with the busting, we are going to look for proofs of the reasons why we were able to bust out those myths through the discussion. And I prepared 3 questions. Again, I have a lot of questions to answer. I prepared a lot of questions for us to answer during my session. But again, we have to limit our time, limit our questions to the given time. And of course, you have a lot of things to do out there. So I just cramped into all the information I would like to provide you with in 3 questions. Number 1 would be what is listening comprehension, which again, I already had a training on this on the first week of July. So do review again my webinar on Learn at Home series. Next would be what is reading comprehension. I already answered that, but for the sake of those who have not visited my webinar or viewed my webinar on teaching comprehending narrative text, I will just give you a definition, a general definition of what is reading comprehension and how it takes place. And the 3rd question would be what strategies best teach students to comprehend information text. So instead of blubbering here, we're going to go through the process of how it's actually done. And in the process, it also helps you refresh and reinforce what you have acquired, acquired in terms of your skills in comprehending informational text way back probably when you were in elementary, high school, or even in college, all right? So I'm not assuming that you do not know these skills. You have these skills probably due to lack of practice or law of disuse. Probably you have riding a bicycle. If you have not ridden a bicycle for quite some time, the skill fades a little, but does not necessarily be forgotten. But so this is an avenue for us to recall and put into the fore all of these skills again. And this is what I've been saying, because our students will learning at home. And it's very important for us educators to tweak our materials, be it modular or online, that it would explicitly teach our students to read and comprehend these materials. Reason being, again, is that the teacher is absent and not there to scaffold or to lend support to whatever learning breakdown that will take place at home. Then we'll have a little bit of mini workshop, because what I'm going to do with the discussion part is go through step by step and examples within each step. And then this is how I taught reading when I was teaching in way back when I was a PNU. And we're going to apply that in one whole text, okay? In one holistic text. And then we'll have a little bit of open forum and questions that I will entertain from you guys, and hopefully that will clarify some cobwebs that you may have in your minds. Then finally, I'll give conclusions and implications of things that I may not have mentioned, but it would support on how you can improve your students' comprehending skills on comprehending information. So let's begin. So introduction. So let's look at some of the myths that a lot of teachers or your co-teachers may have. So the little boy is really cute, huh? Okay, so myth. I have to read every word. I know that we have been taught at a very young age that we're supposed to attack all the words in a selection. Reason being is that words recite in meaning, but no. Now that you're adults, now that we are adults and educators, we know that vocabulary can be categorized as grammatical or functional. All right. So if the word is, grammatical or content words or grammatical words. So the content words are the words that can stand alone, all right, and have meanings without some of the grammatical words there. A good example would be Maria went to the market. So I can understand the sentence without reading the grammatical words to the. So Maria went market. So without me reading those grammatical words, uh, the articles to and prepositions to and the article the, I can still get meaning from it but by reading and attacking content words. Content words are Maria, which is a noun, went, which is a verb, and market, which is a noun again, or the object of it's an object, direct object in the sentence. But the point here is that there is our students to have the misconception because they were taught in the early grades to attack each word, to be able to sound off each word in the sentence. They now have this mythical understanding that when you read, you'll have to read all the words and you're not supposed to skip anything. And that's why a lot of students, when they read selections in mathematics and science and Araling Panliklong, which is too verbose, they feel so guilty if they start reading and they do not finish it. Okay, and what happens is that comprehension breaks down because one way or the other, their brains are loaded with a lot of words that may not contribute to the processing and understanding of the whole text itself. All right, so it's a myth. We don't have to read each word in a sense. In fact, we are encouraging our students to hone their skills of skimming and scanning, and that's focusing on the content words. We will have a session, I suggested webinar topics on this. Hopefully this will be our next topic next week, okay? Next would be reading once is enough. No, this is a myth. There is no one expert reader out there in this world unless you're God and you're God or you're, probably someone who's, with superpowers. It is not enough for us to fully understand what we are reading in just one reading, one instance that we read a selection. It is a recurring, a generative process. We go back through and through, and then that's why we should teach our students not to feel guilty that why do I have to go back to the first paragraph when I'm already almost at the end. But it's just that I know that there is that word or statement in the first or second paragraph that makes me understand this last paragraph in the selection. These are some instances that happens, and this is what we call as comprehension process. And we need to encourage our students that it's okay to go back. But the practice at school is that you need to just read the selection once. And after reading the selection once, you have to fully understand the selection by answering the questions. And you don't have to go back. When you go back to the selection again, that's telling the teacher or the other students that you don't understand the selection or you're a slow learner. These are misconceptions. Generally, we read our selection. In fact, the instance of recreatory reading is that when you read a pocketbook and you love it so much, you keep on reading it over and over and over, and each time you read it, you get new information and you get a different understanding. Well, probably an improvement of the previous understanding. Nonetheless, it is not constant. The first time we read a selection and the way we read it in the first time will have an improvement on the second time we read the selection. So we need to encourage our students to read the selection, if not read, also to listen to the selection, not just once, but twice. That's why our instruction in the module and on the online material is that they have to listen first, pay attention to get the general gist of the selection, and then it will be played the second time around. On the second time around, look at the questions, the guide questions again, and read the selection or listen to the selection the second time around, paying more attention now to details that would give you answers to the following questions. So giving them purpose. could be in the third reading, and so on and so forth. So we are helping our students to go through the process of reading. So therefore, reading once is enough is a myth. Next is, it is irresponsible to skip passages and reading. This is in connection to statement number one, not just the words that we skip words. We can also skip passages that we think are not, that we think are, would not necessarily, help us understand the whole selection. A good example would be some of the examples of the authors in the selection may be skipped out, unless of course you need to, you have more time, you can have time to read those. But later on, we'll discuss that there are only top 3 levels of information that we need to extract from the selection for us to fully understand the text. Okay, so this is a myth. Okay, we can skip some passages and may not be detrimental to the understanding of the whole selection itself. Next would be, the devices are necessary to improve my reading speed. Well, there are devices that would improve your speed, and I know there are a lot of teachers out there that encourage speed, but remember, no matter how fast you are in reading, but if at the end of it you did not understand the selections, and that's nothing. It should be speed with quality, not speed just being able to be fast at attacking words. I'm not saying reading, because if your speed of reading is quick and yet you do not understand what you read, then not reading, and then comprehension did not take place. Then you did not read. You just attacked the words in the selection. All right, that happens when a lot of teachers would ask students to orally the selection and afterwards and making them play. You're quite slow at it. So that somehow gives our students the myth, the misconception, the belief that devices are necessary to improve their reading speed, and speed is more important than understanding the selection. Okay. Next would be, if I skim and read too rapidly, my comprehension will drop. No. In fact, skimming and scanning gives you a general gist of the material you are going to attack. So, in fact, one of the early skills that you're going to use when you read would be skimming and scanning. That's natural. When you buy a book or when you read a newspaper, what you do is you do not read immediately the information in the selections or in the articles. What you do is just skim the front page, the pictures, and all other cue systems in the reading material, and that's but natural. So when we teach our students the natural way of how we go through reading in a daily basis, and in our daily lives, we have to make it more natural as possible. We don't immediately embark, like when you go to the National Bookstore, when you go, did I just promote National Bookstore? I'm sorry. When you go to the bookstore, let's not say just that word. When we go National Bookstore, baka naman dyan, nag-promote na ako, baka gusto niyo ako maging model dyan. Anyway, say, you are in a bookstore and you're looking for books that you would like to buy. What you do is you look at the cover, you look at the table of contents, you scan through the chapters and the pages, and you don't immediately embark on reading the details in each of those pages. Correct. And that's how we're supposed to teach our students. Start skimming and scanning so that you will have a general gist. By that, there's already a level of comprehension happening in your head. You get to have a bigger picture of what you're supposed to attack in the material. So if I skim and read too rapidly, my comprehension will drop. No. It will, in fact, facilitate the understanding of the material. And finally, there is something about my eye that keeps me reading fast. Not like what the little boy doing. Or could it be a girl? Could be a girl. I don't know. It's not the eyes. It's incidentally the eyes, yes. Because remember my discussion yesterday on memory, on memory skills, the sensory inputs and the different types of sensory inputs would be from the different senses. We have eyes, that would be the iconic memory input, sensory input. We have the audio input, that would be information that we hear. And then probably when you read, also eyes, so iconic. But if you're blind, you can have the braille through the hands, all right? So it's not the eyes that reads, it's the brain. Okay, so if you would like to understand more about processing of the brain of information, you may want to review my topic yesterday on memory skills and how the brain works in getting information and how it happens inside the brains of every individual. So it's not the eyes that fades, it's the brain. So incidentally, even if your eyes keep on moving like this and that, but if your brain still struggles so much, so it's the brain that has that's struggling. There's a breakdown of processing in the brain. So whatever happens in the brain that it's breaking down, you may would like to know whether it was in the memory, in the sensory memory, or in the long-term memory, or into the retrieval process. Go back again. I will not discuss in detail that the explanation to myth number 6. We would like to review my session yesterday on developing enhancing memory skills. All right. So let's proceed to discussion now. Let's now look for the answers to the quick explanation that I gave you to the 6 myths that I presented you just a while ago. So discussion now, we will focus on answering basic questions about comprehending informational text. Assuming, of course, again, I am assuming that you already have a good understanding of how to teach what the reading process and how to teach reading in general and how and how to teach beginning reading. So I'm assuming that our students now already have uh, um, basic skills on reading. So vocabulary, they already have basic skills on beginning reading and so on and so forth. And on the narrative and on comprehending narrative text, we're now into informational text. So at the end of you guys teaching your students comprehending informational text, it could take years, okay? It could take years, not just one day. It cannot be just, one semester. It could be years before we help our students to fully acquire the skills of comprehending informational text. The point here is that after all the years and after all the things we have done to explicitly teach our students the skills of comprehending informational text, and yet they're still struggling, then that's what we call as remediation. All right. So there's probably something happening to your students, and such deficits exist among your students, and that will be the topic next week. I will be dealing with, if they give the topic to me, I will be dealing with certain deficits in reading, like deficits in comprehension, deficits in learning disabilities, dyslexia, dysgraphia, and dyscalculia. These are the things that we need to address after all the instruction. So this is more of instruction, okay? So let's begin with the first question. What is listening? What is listening comprehension? So I already had a certain training on this on the second week, if not the second week of July, during the home series on the series between 7 o'clock. I think the time is 7 to 8 o'clock in the evening, and you would like to review on focusing on listening skills. I think that's on teaching language, explicit teaching of independent learning of English at home. So just to go through this, oral text, or what we call as oral sensory input. So hearing, it starts with hearing, and then we allow our students to select a stimuli. So that's looking at giving our students attention, giving focus on what they're supposed to. Of all the many oral texts that they are hearing, they just need to focus on one, or probably the things that they're supposed to focus on in terms of the lessons, and then facilitate understanding. It could be many strategies as I've presented there. It could be questions, it could be graphic organizers, and so on and so forth. To facilitate understanding. You do not assume that you're going to leave your students on their own, especially listening comprehension on their own, without any support and any strategy to provide them with in order to understand the selection that they are listening to. Then there will be evaluating activities to help your students analyze and judge the veracity of the information. That's why it is important for us to teach our students to distinguish between factual statements and opinion statements. We will have a little bit of exercise on that in a while, but I will not discuss that thoroughly because it should have been discussed. You took already, or you watched already the reading process, okay, webinar. And then after evaluating activity for our students, then we have them retrieve those information, remembering via, say, summarizing, making an outline, or talking about these things. And then eventually we help our students to respond, giving feedback by having collaborative efforts. Remember, it should be individualized. No one can help another person recall the facts. It is your brain. It is you. You have control over your brain, and therefore you have every individual, every student must be taught how they can retrieve and what effective ways or strategies is most appropriate for them or effective for them to be able to retrieve information that quick. Okay, and then responding could be requesting your students to go into small groups and collaborative, which I already talked about on how we can come up with an online platform for collaborative efforts. You may want to review again my sessions before that. Otherwise, I will be talking on those strategies and leaving the topic that I'm supposed to discuss today. So this is how listening. And if you would like a thorough discussion on this, review again my session on learning English independently or self-paced learning. I forgot the topic, but it was the second week of July. So there are stages of teaching listening. So you have before listening and during listening, and then we have after listening again. It's similar. If this is the stages of teaching comprehension and listening, it's the same stages we will go through in teaching reading. So we will also have before reading, during reading, and after reading. And these are the stages we're going to go through this morning. All right, so let's proceed to the second question. What is reading comprehension? So I already have a session on this. I already, in my perspective, I thoroughly discussed this during my session on teaching comprehension of narrative text. So generally, these are the definitions of comprehension. Now, go back again to the train on the webinar on the teaching of reading. So we know that the comprehension is the essence of reading. So if you are attacking a reading material and you're so fast at it and you can pronounce all the words and you know all the word and you can pronounce the words, well, just pronounce the words and you're able to finish all of it, but at the end of the selection you did not understand it. So that means you were not reading at all. You were just attacking the material. You were just barking at print. You're just sounding off the words there. So sounding off is not reading. It is pronouncing. All right. But if you were pronouncing it and barking at print, and at the same time you understood what you were saying or you were reading aloud, then that's the essence. Comprehension is taking place. Now, the reconstruction of the intended comprehension is the reconstruction of the intended meaning of a communication, meaning our students are able to understand the text and the author of the text, because I already discussed that there are three perspectives of comprehension. The reader understanding the text based on his experiences, put into the fore while reading the selection, while also a text perspective that we are able to understand the text itself and whatever information is there by, understand, especially for informational text, and then getting and be able to communicate with the writer, that's the author's perspective, be able to communicate with the writer and what could be the author's purpose in writing the selection and what he wants me to take away. So those are the things that we need to teach our students. And then go back again to my webinar on teaching narrative text. I already have an explanation on this. Next would be, it is a process in which the learner constructs meaning. Therefore, if it's a process, it is like any skill or process or skill, we need to help our students go through steps, okay, and actually comprehending, all right? So when we teach our students, say, how to cook adobo, then we give them steps like before cooking. First, prepare the ingredients. So that's similar to teaching comprehending narrative text and teaching comprehending informational text. What are the things they need to prepare before actually reading the selection? Before reading, and then actual reading, what do you actually do? What are the things that you're supposed to mix together and be able to understand fully the selection? And then afterwards, what happens? Do we need to translate? Do we need to further deepen our understanding of the selection? What are those things that we need to do? All right, so that's what we need to teach our students. And we do not assume that by giving our selections, by giving our students the selections, they would, individually be able to attack it. These are skills, and skills, like any other sets of skills, should be taught explicitly. All right. Not anymore that. Just go back. This is from my previous webinars. So let's proceed to the third discussion. We have what strategies best teach students to comprehend information text. So we're now going through the step-by-step process. So let us begin with before reading. So this is based on my experience and how I taught my reading students, not just to be readers or critical readers, but also how they can teach their students to become readers in comprehending informational text. So the first thing that we need to teach our students is to teach students deductive and inductive thinking, meaning before reading, we need to prepare our students' brain of the information they need to attack in the selection. So the deductive means students are able to see the general information, and from that, they're able to look at the details that it's connected to, be able to understand the details. So because they know the bigger picture, they will not be able to understand the details being given now. Let's say, in a book, the title of the book is the general information, a general topic, and all of the details inside the book would be anchored on the topic. So that's deductive already. So by helping our students look at those details, general details, our students will be able to understand certain specific information that is embedded in the reading material. So how do we do that? I could say that some of the things I would teach my students would be on the word level or the vocabulary level. Just a moment. Thank you very much. All right. So what teachers can do is that you need to read the material in advance, okay? By reading in advance, we need to extract content words from the selection and present that to our students. So example, the selection that we're going to use later on our workshop would be this. So I will give my students, you provide your students with these content words, and I would say physical anthropology, linguistic, ethnography, cultural anthropology, archaeology, historical, paleontology, anthropology, comparative neontology. So what I want my students to do is on their own, okay, on their own, I would like them, so probably in small groups, I would like them to arrange these groups from the most general topic to the most specific using a graphic organizer. All right, so probably give them 5 to 10 minutes to think about. I'm not giving them vocabulary instruction per se. What I'm trying to do here is to help my students prepare their brain. Again, go back again to my topic yesterday on memory skills. I'm helping them focus on information they need to attend to during the reading process. All right. What teachers are doing out there is some teachers are doing out there is that they just provide, they do teach, prepare students to do deductive and inductive thinking skills, but they use words that are not connected to the reading selection. So we need to have text integrity in all the activities before, during, and after activities that we request our students or we make our students accomplish in the lesson. All right. So say done with the collaborative activity where they're able to organize it. So I could now ask them to check whether they're right with the information by looking at this. All right. So guys, we can with the teacher comes in to provide students with scaffold, but remember, allow them first to let their brains think, okay, think deductively and inductively. All right, so anthropology and so on and so forth. So you may present this now, how the words can be organized using a graphic organizer. All right, so once you have presented this, you are now giving your students a way of checking their own pre-reading comprehension. Okay, and it facilitates a general understanding, a general activity to help students modify their assumptions of what they're supposed to read. And but thereby giving this to the students before reading, you are now helping students see a whole bigger picture of what they will be reading. They will not be shocked na ano ba itong binabasa ko, wala man lang preliminary. Okay, so ito mapapakita mo na sa mga bata. So these are the things. So I will be able now to focus on the details. All right. So what I'm suggesting here is that teachers, when you prepare your materials, you need to have a graphic organizer that somehow gives the student a general picture of of the lesson, okay? A general picture of the lesson and how this information are connected to each other. Okay, which one is a bigger topic and which are those details. All right. So next step is teach students to distinguish fact from opinion. We need to help our students see which of those information are information based and which of those are the opinions of the author. A good example would be, say, number one, anthropology is the study of human beings and their ancestors through time and space and in relation to physical character, environmental and social relations, and culture. And then we have another statement, anthropology is considered to be one, sorry, to be one of the most interesting of all disciplines since it deals with human beings, their origin, environment, society, and culture, and relations and interactions. And then number three, anthropology has four major subfields that emerged in the 20th century: physical anthropology, archaeology, linguistics, and cultural anthropology. Therefore, you will now ask students which of these three sentences are factually stated and which of those are opinionated, okay, or opinion-based statements. So yes, students now will be able to identify that statement one and statement two are factual information, and basically that could be the information they will be reading. Well, number two would be an opinion which they can form or the author formed, um, deduced probably later on after reading that they can, counter after reading. So for a higher applied level of understanding. So by doing this, again, it's text. There is still text integrity. The statements that we come up with for opinion and facts still based on the selection they will be reading. Okay, so we have to maintain text integrity. Okay. Next would be prepare students to read through the text. Now, helping our students to read through the text by using the art of questioning. I will not be, again, giving a lot of details on the art of questioning. There will be another training on the art of questioning, but I already formulated some of the following questions, okay? So what is anthropology? What are the subfields of anthropology? What is the purpose of the author in writing the selection? And do I understand how the author presents the facts and information? If you look at the questions that I have here, it starts from factual leading to opinionated. All right. So what is anthropology? Text-based, perhaps information-based. What are the subfields of anthropology? Text-based and information-based. Still, what is the purpose of the author in writing selection? It could be, it's now interactive reading where students, based on the information provided by the text, by discussion, students will now be able to go beyond the text, okay, or read between the lines and understand why is the author trying to tell me this information. And then finally, that should be number four. Number three, do I understand how the author is now looking back, helping our students reflect on, going back into my topic yesterday on memory skills, helping our students reflect and evaluate how they comprehend the selection and whether the strategies they used in attacking the selection was effective in a way that it helps them fully understand the selection. All right. So how I formulated the questions, we had called this question questioning the author. We have a text-based or literal questions. We have interpretive questions, and we have applied questions. That would be on a separate training. So this one are the questions that I provide you with, of course, following the principles of the art of questioning. So questions help our students prepare through text. They don't have to answer the questions here, but this will be your guide questions, will be guide questions for the students as basis, as purpose in looking at what attacking the selection. Okay, they'll be looking for the answers to these questions, purposive reading. And then sorry. And then we after before reading, we now proceed to those are the dogs. I'm sorry. That's one of the uh, problems with online training and on webinars. Dogs are barking, so it's in the other room. All right. During reading, so we have now prepared our students before reading via helping them prepare their thinking skills. That's deductive and inductive. Now, it could be just not just word level, it could also be sentence level. And then we proceed to steps which be basically helping our students grow through the selection via questions. And then we also help our students distinguish fact from opinion. There are many strategies that we can have on before reading, but I will add more strategies on that tonight when I discuss teaching comprehension across the subject areas. But this is mostly the basic strategies that somehow would help our students effectively in attacking informational selections. Now, first thing that we need to help our students during reading is prepare students to comprehend the text by understanding rhetorical patterns. Let them skim and scan for words or transition devices that would provide a gleam of how the information in the material organized. So do not let the students read verbatim the selection. Let them skim and scan, not scam, sorry, skim and scan. That will be for most of the politicians. And probably that's why some of our politicians are who they are right now, because some of our reading teachers probably taught them scheming and scamming instead of scheming and scanning. Well, that was a joke. Okay, it's a joke. I'm the one smiling and laughing here, but you guys are probably like, what? What the heck was that? All right, so again, let the students skim and scan for transition devices that would help our students, get a glimpse of how the information was organized in the selection or in the reading material. So these are the things that we need to help our students look for. These are the devices. Generally, we have 5 basic rhetorical patterns. We have enumeration descriptions, and these are some of the transition devices or discourse markers that students can skim and scan for in order to see how the information was organized. Say they skim and scan for the selection, and they saw the following words or similar words to begin with, first, secondly, next, then finally. For instance, in fact, they now have an idea that the information was organized in an information description organization or pattern. All right. Next would be time sequence. Let the students skim and scan for words like or similar words like on, then with a date like on May blank 1941, or not long after, and now, as, before, after, with, when. You know that especially these are words that are mostly occurring in history books. All right. So you know that the information was organized in a time sequence. The difference between there's a similarity somehow between the transition devices used in enumeration description and time sequence. The difference is that in the time sequence, there's a particular order of sequence. That's why it's called time sequence. All right. So there's a particular order. One leads to the other. While enumeration description, the first may not necessarily the actual first, and the second may not be the actual second. One does not influence the other, or the information in the first, stated in the first, may not influence the information stated in the second. Like when you are describing something, say, I'm describing how I see someone as beautiful, the nose, the ears. I can say my description about the nose and my description of the ears would mean that the nose and the ears would have the ears would have a higher, would be more important than the nose. I think everything has an equal stance in the selection. Now, if students are able to skim and scan for words like however, but, as well as, on the other hand, not only, but, and so, and others, then your students will now be able to understand that the information is organized in comparison and contrast text pattern. Also, if students are able to scan for words like problem, need, challenge, issue, resolve, plan, then there's a high possibility that the author used problem solution uh, text organization. And another one, the last one is, if words students scan for cause, sense, therefore, consequently, as a result, nevertheless, and other words similar to this, it could be cause-effect relationship. So we need to teach our students that even if uh, there's no one text that has only one type of text organization, the authors may uh, combine this text organization, especially in the development of different paragraphs. But what we need our students to look at, since they're skimming and scanning, is to look at the general text organization, because the author may use problem solution. Let's say the author will enumerate the problems and then enumerate and describe the problems, and then enumerate and describe the solutions. So the author generally have a problem solution text organization, but the sub text organization to present each of those elements would be enumeration description. So we have, by skimming and scanning, we help our students see the general pattern, how the information was organized, not just by paragraph or by sentence, right? Let's have an example. Let's look at this passage. I already highlighted to you the words and another, even, then. By scanning all of these words. So again, teachers, when you develop your modules, your online material, you need to highlight these words to explicitly help students skim and scan for text organization, or how the information was organized, to facilitate the way students will process the information. Hindi pwede, to shift to Filipino, na ang selection ko ay problem solution, pero ang pagkakaintindi ng bata, ang kanyang ginamit na pag-atake sa teksto ay time sequence. Hindi magkakaroon ng tamang angkop na pagpoproseso. Right? If the text was in a problem solution text organization, the brain must process it in that perspective, in that organization. It cannot be cause effect. Otherwise, there will be miscomprehension. All right? So I hope you got the point there, why it is important for our students to skim and scan for text organization, especially for devices. Now, you cannot assume that your students will automatically be able to apply this. We have to prepare our materials in such a way that it facilitates our students to practice, okay, to apply skimming and scanning to get the general text organization of information. By highlighting the devices used in selection, it helps our students skim and scan for the text organization, words, transition devices. All right? So with this, huwag mo nang pabasa sa mga bata. Okay, pwede mong stop. Okay. Questions would be, activity would be, okay, look at the highlighted words, the initial words, highlighted initial words of each paragraph or each sentence. Which of the following text organization what text organization, how was the information in the selection organized based on these devices or transition devices? So we are able to facilitate our students. So this is enumeration description. So I'm supposed to understand this, and my mindset in attacking and comprehensive selection is in the enumeration description, meaning I'll be looking at how the descriptions were enumerated, or I will be basically understanding the list of descriptions. So, huwag mo na pabasahin lahat. So after they're able to look at the general gist by skimming and scanning, now let the students locate the topic sentence in order to extract the topic and main idea of the selection. So there should be another training on this. Especially tonight, will be on looking at the different types of locating the topic sentence. But what we want our students to understand is that the topic sentence may be found in the beginning, middle, or end, or it could be a gist, but it has to be step by step. Like we need to explicitly teach our students to identify the topic sentence found at the beginning of the paragraph and in the middle of the paragraph and end of the paragraph, or both beginning or end, or a gist. Not explicitly mentioned, but it is a gist. My point here is that it has to be taught explicitly. All right, so you have to prepare the materials for specific teaching of locating topic sentence at the beginning of passages or paragraphs, and then another training on helping students to locate the topic sentence that are found in the middle of the selections, and then another training on helping students to locate topic sentences that are found at the end, and then eventually beginning and end, and eventually gist. All right, so attack it one at a time. Do not assume that your students will be able to locate all of this without you guys teaching where these topic sentences are located. Why? Now the question would be, why is it important for us to teach our students to locate the topic sentence? Because the topic sentence is a combination of the topic of the selection plus the main idea or the author's thesis or opinion of the topic. Okay, so if students are able to locate the topic sentence, it is again the most important information that they will get, because the supporting details that they will be reading are all connected to this topic sentence. If they fail to locate the topic sentence, they will be reading, and then while they're reading, it will not make a general sense to them. It will not make, there's no cohesive idea that connects all the details that they are reading. If we help our students locate the topic sentence, all the details will now make sense. Supporting details, all right? So how do we do that? So let's go back to the selection that we used a while ago. Okay. So we can identify our students. You can probably underline, okay? You can underline the topic sentence. Animals then can be a means of therapy for many kinds of individuals. So you can ask students, so what do you think is the topic? What is the selection all about? Oh, it's all about animals, and it says here can be means of therapy for many kinds of individuals. I think the question is, what type of animals, right? Okay. And then what do you think is the author trying to tell us? What is the main idea of the selection? The author's main idea, or what the author is trying to tell us, is that these animals can be a means of therapy for many kinds of individuals. Therefore, once teachers are able to facilitate students in locating the topic sentence, students now will understand, oh, all the things that I will be reading in detail in the selection will be based on the idea that pets or animals can be a means of therapy for many kinds of individuals. Therefore, it could be a list of descriptions of how beneficial or therapeutical owning pets to some certain individuals, right? Okay, so guided na ang bata. Hindi yung pinabasa mo siya, tas ang bata, ano ba talaga dapat basahin ko dito? Hindi ko siya maintindihan. All right? So we're just wasting a lot of time if we just let our students read selections on their own. And then at the end of the reading activity, you found out that your students did not actually understand what they attacked. And then you get frustrated. Then whose fault was that? It wasn't the fault of your student. The fault of the reading or the teachers themselves. Why? Because we did not facilitate the actual process of helping students comprehend the selection step by step. Remember, comprehending is a skill and a process. Hence, we have to organize our material in such a way it is step by step, guiding our students to actually understand the selection. All right. Once we're done with that, we're now ready to go to the next step, which is helping our students note supporting details. Now, all the supporting details provided in the selection, the detailed reading, that's what we call now as reading the details of the selection. We now actually embark on looking at the details in the selection, but this time we will be assured that our students will, while they read the details, supporting details, these supporting details will not make sense to them because they already have a general gist of the selection, plus they already know what is the topic all about and what the author is trying to tell them, right? So let's go back to to the selection. All right. So noting for supporting details. Now remember that we asked our students initially during reading to skim and scan for supporting details. So these supporting details now would give us the idea that this course markers or these transition devices provide us with supporting details. So a study could be one supporting detail, another study could be another supporting detail, even emotionally is another supporting detail. We cannot say, students know now that the last sentence, animals then, means that this is not a supporting detail, because in the second step during reading is that we facilitated the location of the topic sentence. Automatically, the last sentence will be the out out of the question of for students to process. All right. So now that this is the selection, we now help our students extract. So we have supporting detail 1, supporting detail number 2, and supporting detail number 3. What's amazing about with online reading materials is that you can create materials like this. It can facilitate comprehension. So knowing that the students now are focusing on supporting details, you say, so owning a pet can change a heart. So I changed the color so that students would see that these are supporting details, and I numbered it like this. Okay, detail number 1, supporting detail number 1, and then we have supporting detail number 2, and then supporting detail number 3. All right. Now in modules, what you can do is that you can number your paragraphs or your sentences. All right, paragraph your sentences, and then you can now say that look at sentences or paragraph blank blank blank, and so that they will now be able to focus to the supporting details. All other information is not necessary. Okay. Now, once they're able to locate the topic sentence and locate so you ask your students to skim and scan for transition devices during reading. We're talking about during skim and scan for transition devices to get an idea of how the information is organized through text pattern used in the selection. Ask students to locate where the topic sentence is, again, where beginning and middle and or beginning and end or gist. But once they identified that, they know now that this part of the selection should not be used for detailed reading. And then the third one is now the detailed reading, where you ask your students to identify and locate supporting details. You go back again to step 1, which is the already skim and scan for the transition devices. By looking at the transition devices, they will now be able to, one way or the other, find out the supporting details. So we're now ready for after reading. That means we have facilitated getting the information from helping our students get the most essential important information, the selection for them to process. So after reading, we now facilitate further processing of the information by helping them extract the top 3 levels of information. So I can ask my students now too. So this is what we call a graphical presentation. So you usually have activity sheets for the selection. So I will ask my students to say, so the topic of the selection is all about pet animals. So you will now know that it's not just any animals, but pet animals or just pets per se. And the main idea can be a means of therapy for many kinds of individuals. And then we can now enumerate the 3 supporting details. How did prison inmate become a more caring person? Senior citizens become more interested in life. Emotionally disturbed children smile and react with interest. So just teach them parallelism though, all right? In extracting supporting details. This is what we call I call this as cue cards, cue cards technique for our students. So via this, it will help our students now see the organization of the most important information. And our students basically have attacked the information, extracted the information from the selection, and now they're ready to talk about whether they agree with the author or not. So it's futile to ask our students to brainstorm about the information in the selection if they were not helped to actually extract the information from selection. All right, it's not assumed. It has to be guided. It has to be explicitly taught to the students step by step. Now, another strategy or technique that we can help our students in extracting the top 3 levels of information, sorry for that, is asking our students to graphically represent the top three levels of information via, say, a graphic organizer. So I would say benefits of owning pets. So you have three. There you go. Once they're able to have represent their I could have groups. Okay, I can group my students that this group of students will extract the top three levels information. That's the topic, main ID, and supporting details from the selection using my cue cards. And this group of students will extract the top three levels information using the graphic organizers. And while the third group will be using the outlining, it's still a graphic organizer, but in through an outline form. And then the other one, I can ask my students to do extract extract the top three levels of information via a summary like this. So summary would be owning pets have several benefits to different people like changing. Okay. Now here is helping students to facilitate the making of the summary of the selection using the top three levels of information, which the formula is topic plus main idea plus supporting details. So you need to teach those. Remember, going back again, if you want to use cue cards as a technique in extracting the information from the selection read, you have to teach them how it's done, all right? So topic, main idea, supporting details. So these are your guides. And then eventually you have another technique, graphical representation using webbing, all right? Graphic organizer. So you have to teach them how webs are done or a flow chart perhaps. So whatever graphic organizer you'll be asking students to do, you must explicitly teach them how it's done. Do not assume, okay, represent, extract the topic sentence by using graphic organizers. Don't just say graphic organizers. Explicitly tell them what graphic organizer they're going to use and how it is used and it's done. All right? We do not assume. Sabi na, mga batang hina-hina naman, di marunong magawa ng outline. The question is, did you teach them how to make an outline? You get frustrated. Most of our teachers get frustrated because we assume so much. We assume that our students know already. They are not fountains of information, fountains of knowledge. Comprehending is a skill. It's a process. And that's why teachers are there. We, as teachers, are there to help them and facilitate the acquisition of these skills. All right. So let's have another one, the summary. So you need to teach students to make a summary, the topic, meaning, supporting details. So tuturuan mo mga bata, ha? So say this is the summary. Owning pets have several benefits to different people, like changing a hardened person inmate into a more caring person, making senior citizens become more interested in life, and making parallelism kasi making emotionally disturbed children smile and react with interest. So via this, we can identify that this is the topic, and we have here the main idea, and then we have the three supporting details. All right, you have facilitated your students, and therefore, when you ask students to, say, a certain group of your students will make a summary, dapat tinuruan muna sila gumawa ng summary. So siguro this week muna would be you using the cue cards. When students already have mastered using the cue cards, then we now proceed to the next week by making graphic organizer. All right, and then the next week will be now making a summary, and then on the fourth week you can now combine together, asking students to group themselves, and then one group will be using the cue cards, the other one will be using the graphic organizer, and the other one making a summary, the other one making an outline. Okay. Nonetheless, you cannot ask students to do something that you did not teach them to do. And then probably in the fifth day, what you can ask is, okay, individually extract the top three levels of information, choose whichever strategy is effective for you. You can make a summary, you can make a topic outline, and so on and so on. So you now help, because you have taught them the different techniques, you're now allowing students to use which of those techniques works well for them in understanding the solution. Now, once they are done with this, you now move on to other skills like predictive outcomes, evaluative thinking skills, like do you agree with the author in when he said, and so on and so forth. All right. Asking students' opinion should be based on, were they successful in extracting the information? Because all opinions not based on the information in the selection are all acceptable. But if the opinions that we are asking for our students to generate, like yesterday I discussed on generation, if we're asking our students to generate answers given questions that we provided them, it must be based on the facts provided in the informational text. That's why, for heaven's sake, it's called informational text. And the opinions of our students must be based whether they agree with the information presented in the text or they don't agree with the information selection. So it is, again, there is text integrity. Okay, I'm not sure if I have enough time. It's already 11 o'clock, so let's have a mini workshop. Okay, so I think I'm almost supposed to end at 11:30, but I think I'm on time. Good thing that um, I made this more of a process. Okay, so let's now apply learning. So I can now ask you, okay, guys, what I would like you to do is look at these words. Okay, let's read the words: physical anthropology, linguistics, ethnology, cultural anthropology, archaeology, historical ethnography, paleontology, anthropology, neontology, and we have and comparative. What I want you to do now, I could go for individual perhaps. What I would like you to do now out there is for you to organize these words using a flow chart. Okay, I taught you yesterday how to make a flow chart. Now, using a flow chart, I would like you to organize this information from the from the most the biggest idea to the smallest idea. All right, I'll be giving you 5 minutes and so on and so forth. Okay, once done, so you'll wait for 5 minutes perhaps, and then you now present the one that we presented a while ago. Okay, so anthropology has four identified branches. You have the physical anthropology, linguistics, archaeology, and cultural anthropology. And its the subdivisions of physical anthropology are neontology, paleontology, and subdivisions of linguistics, historical, comparative, and so on and so forth. Now, by doing this by graphic organizers, you help your students actually elaborate information, and they're able to explain just content words. Look at these are just content words, but it does make sense to them. So it somehow helped them prepare their mind. Again, remember our discussion yesterday of our information of the memory skills. We have retrieval and elaboration. This would help our students retrieve information easily and at the same time be able to elaborate and generate information. Okay, and there's interleaving because they're able to focus on the most important information. Okay, okay. Then now I will now ask students to look at the statement. So distinguish fact from opinion. Same, still on the selection of anthropology. All right. And then I will have questions, which I already I presented to you a while ago. And then I will now ask my students to look at the information. Okay, look at the information here. So this is, I actually made it the purpose that the paragraphs are identified in terms of what it says. Okay, so paragraph number 1 introduces the purpose of the selection. Second paragraph defines physical anthropology and its sub-branches and defines archaeology. Second paragraph defines physical anthropology and its sub-branches. And then the third paragraph defines archaeology as a branch of anthropology. The fourth paragraph defines linguistics and its sub-branches. And then we have defines on the fifth paragraph is defines cultural anthropology. By doing this, giving them a general gist of how the paragraph, my example a while ago was just a passage. This is what we call as multi-paragraph text selection, which basically are common to lots of reading selections for intermediate level and for high school level. In high school, there are even more paragraphs than this. So we need to, if that's the case, then we need to facilitate to help our students get the general gist of each paragraph, okay, before embarking on embarking on details, looking for details. Now look at the words defines. So now students will now, by doing this, our students are now have a bigger idea that the rhetorical pattern or the text, the information in the selection is organized in a enumeration description pattern or text organization. So there will be attacking now. You have prepared your students to actually attack, understand the selection in an enumeration description perspective. Okay? After, once you have So ito po yung sinasabi ko, ang materials po natin dapat nakatulong sa pag-develop ng uh, uh, skills on comprehending information text. Usually, ang ginagawa po natin sa field ay just the selection. The selection was not organized, was not developed in such a way that it facilitates that. Okay? Of course, we have preferences. And then I will now ask my students to go back to the graphic organizer after reading, or while reading, I will ask them, okay, these are your activity sheets. While reading, I would like you to accomplish this graphic organizer. Well, your goal is for them to extract the top 3 levels of information. Okay? So, and then another one would be another activity sheet is then for them to extract the topic using cue cards, the topic, main ideas, supporting details. And then I will ask them to summarize using this. But this time again, I will have a blank sheet still for them to be able to make a summary, but with the formula topic plus main idea plus supporting details. All right. So at this point, I would like to, probably I was so picked with my explaining of the concepts, but I focus more on the skills than of just teaching you what is comprehending informational text. So all other information will be discussed specifically, say, how about science, about mathematics, about subject area. I just taught you the basic skills of teaching students comprehending informational text. This evening, when I talk about teaching comprehension across subject areas, I will now teach you how to help students comprehend informational text specifically for science, mathematics, and other subject areas. But this is the basic. Now, at this point, it's already 11:13 or almost 11:15 in my watch. So I'm now ready to entertain questions and queries and clarifications from you guys out there. Okay? So, who's my moderator, Mitch?
Me po. Yan. Here po. Your first question po is from Miss Ford Celeste Dumas. How about those who like to read while the music is on?
I already have a session of it yesterday on on developing memory skills. Yes, that is again I've discussed is anything that would facilitate the understanding of any mental activity. It could be reading. Yesterday I talked about the mental skills and techniques and strategies and helping the brain get information, how the brain processes information in any activity they're doing. So this time I'm situating it on reading informational text. Now, on that premise, your question is if our students are able to comprehend well informational text using through listening to music, then so be it. Nonetheless, even if there's music as a background to facilitate a focusing or attending to information, your material, your reading material must be organized to facilitate comprehension before, during, and after. Hindi pwedeng may questions ka lang before, tapos papabasahin mo ng buo, then answering the questions afterwards. Hindi pwede. Hindi pwedeng ganun lang. Dapat guided talaga siya, step by step. Unless, of course, by the time that they're already in the latter stages of the junior high school and in senior high school, that you assume that your students already are sophisticated comprehenders of informational text across subject areas, then probably you can now just assume that they know the process. So you just have before questions, then selection, then after activity. You can do that. But again, we are here. Our topic is teaching, comprehending informational text. Therefore, the teaching means explicit step-by-step teaching of how the skills are actually used in the phases of reading any informational text. So listening to music would help students focus information, but the material, how we develop it, would be another thing. So I would say perhaps it will lend help, but your materials develop in such a way, the way I have discussed it, in such a way to facilitate the acquisition and application of comprehension skills of attacking informational text would be best approach to teaching our students comprehension. Thank you.
Thank you very much. For next question from Miss Dina Tesorio. Can you give us some techniques to improve my pupils' listening ability?
Listening abilities. Um, I would like to answer that again, but I already had a session on it during July. So you may want to review my webinar on 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 independent learning of English. I focus on listening there, so you may want to have a strategy in there. So just to give you, I don't want to leave you without any answer to your question. So strategies you can help your students to do is that you can have always remember that there will be pre-listening activity, during listening activity, and after listening activity. So similar to reading activity, you will have to prepare students. If they're listening to, say, a listening text that is informational or a narrative, so you need to prepare their minds that I'm supposed to be reading an informational text. So uh, one of the things that you can focus on is to prepare them on, again, as I've said, word level and text organization. We need to help our students to approximate how the information that they're going to listen to was approximated. In fact, the skills of reading and the skills of reading comprehension is similar to the skills of listening comprehension. The difference is that the mode of delivery. Parehas lang po yun ang mga skills na yun. Nag-iiba lang po talaga ang pag-deliver natin. It's the same selection. The reading selection can be delivered through listening, correct? Nonetheless, it's the same activity, same similar strategy that we can apply to our students. Thank you very much.
Thank you po. Next po is from Miss Rosemary Amparado. What is
Yes.
the ideal length of podcasts that teachers can use as a springboard for listening test?
Excuse me again, the length of the podcast.
Yes po. The teachers can use for their listening po.
Well, there's no such thing as enough time for them to listen, but I'm suggesting that especially for preparing our students to actually comprehend this listening activity or the comprehension or reading activity, it is important for us to have 2 to 3 uh, uh, times of listening to the selection. Mas mahirap kasi pag listening kasi echoic siya, talagang listening, wala siya mga visual supports that would help our students. And unless it's a podcast plus a PowerPoint presentation, a combination of both, as I've discussed yesterday on facilitating memory skills, if we can combine together echoic, and then the iconic, may nakikita sila, tapos may naririnig sila, na-combine mo sila, then mas mataas ang level ng pag-intindi. Pero kung talagang pure echoic or listening lang talaga, you have to facilitate recurring activity of listening to the activity. So first listening of the activity should be general information, perhaps, and then the second information would be specific information that they need to listen to, and then the last one would be, probably looking at evaluative whether the answers that they taken down notes on the second listening were correct based on the second listening of the selection. So it is important that we, in listening, that we have ample time for students to listen to, not just once. Remember, it's a myth that once is enough. It has to be at least 2 to 3 times, especially on listening activity. Thank you.
Okay po, Brother Ricky, for
Wait.
our last...
Sorry.
sige po.
Additional to the listening activity also is we need to approximate enough if the teachers are the one delivering the listening text. It is very important for us to approximate the fluency level of the grade level we are delivering it to our students. So you may want to check out, you may want to Google it, but I definitely know that you already have been trained during your undergraduate years when you took education or during your CPD trainings that there's a certain fluency level for a particular grade level or group of clusters of students. So the way we're going to read aloud as a listening text to our students, certain selections should be appropriate to the fluency level of our students, not your fluency level. Sometimes your fluency level is not appropriate in orally reading selection, not appropriate for our students. So we want to go back to my session on read aloud activity and storytelling. I somehow modeled modeled encompassingly how certain fluency affects listening text or the development of listening comprehension materials for our students. Thank you.
Okay, po, Brother Ricky, for our last question this morning is from Mr. Alex Abelar.
Yes.
Any tips for both students and teachers in discriminating facts, propaganda, and opinion, especially in these times of fake news, misinformation, and disinformation?
You know what? A while ago, when I was talking about distinguishing fact from opinion as one of the techniques, I know that some of you will be asking, how is it actually done? How do we identify propaganda? And that's why we will probably have another training on that, probably not if not next week, because next week I'm thinking of remediation and correction of comprehension strategies, of comprehension skills of students. Probably on the third week of August, we'll be looking at that. But it is really important for us how we teach our students critical thinking skills and evaluative thinking skills, especially of identifying distinguishing fact from opinion, and identifying propagandas using in especially at home where they are now uh, bombarded with technology-based, digital technology-based information via the tri-media. I think one of the things that we can do is, again, it still is the same as any other skill for that matter. It is very important for us to teach our students skill by skill. But remember, when we now delve into opinion, helping our students specific skills on distinguishing fact from opinion, we are now delving into grammar. Kasi papasok po doon ang identifying qualifiers. Okay? And sentence organization and uh, sentence structures. So pag pumasok na tayo dun kasi, it will be another topic. But how we teach our students distinguishing fact from opinion is teaching them sentence structures, okay, functions of sentences. So not just structure of sentences, but also functions of sentences. And by the functions of sentences, we now afterwards teach our students words that pertain or emotive language or emotive words that would signal opinion. So we call them as qualifiers. So we now introduce the rules on using qualifiers to create opinions or fact-based opinions. Kasi hindi lang opinion yan. Pero tayo sinasabi na false statement of fact, and we also have true statement of fact, and we have opinion-based, fact-based opinion, and we have what we call as non-fact-based opinion. So may mga subcategories pa yon. So kailangan pasukan po ng language yon. And then on propaganda again, tuturuan ng mga bata to identify certain statements that pertain to a certain appeal. So papasok ulit po dun sinasabi natin na language learning for our students. At this point po, thank you for asking a question because you have given me an idea, a whole new idea of other topics that we can provide you with. So wait for it. We will definitely provide you with a training on helping students evaluate information through distinguishing fact and opinion and propagandas. What a beautiful topic he just provided us. That we can present through our FB Live and webinars. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, thank you so much, Brother Ricky. That's all the question we have for now. And of course, before we finally end the session, I would like to ask you, for Brother Ricky, for your last reminders to our viewers for this morning. Po.
Well, definitely, I always have last reminders and last statements for all of us to remember. Just, additional takeaways for you guys. Conclusion and implications. We'll try to tie loose ends and accepting challenges and teaching comprehension of informational text. So these are just challenges for you, okay? We need to be reminded that we, teachers, must be skilled readers to begin with in order for us to explicitly teach our learners to comprehend informational text. So I always go back to the primordial mantra of teachers. Primordial mantra of teachers mean we cannot teach what we do not have. We teach how to comprehend informational text because that's how we do it and that's how we were taught it. Now, if we were successfully wrongly taught by our previous teachers how to attack informational text, and that's how we will be teaching our students to deal with informational text. So we need to understand better ways, easy ways, and explicit ways how we can improve our comprehension skills uh, for informational text in order for us to help our students. Because if we are guiding our students to comprehend informational text, that means we can also effectively and efficiently comprehend informational text. You can apply it's if you do not know how it's done, it's like the saying, a blind leading a blind. All right. And then finally, we have directly explicitly teaching reading means, okay, this bit I've been mentioning, directly and explicit teaching reading means imparting new information to students through meaningful teacher-student interactions and teacher guidance and student learning. Now, I know that, especially right now, that the president already explicitly mentioned in his sonnet that he will not encourage, or he's not promoting face-to-face uh, interaction between teachers and students, unless that the school can provide uh, safety measures, strict safety measures for face-to-face interaction of teachers and students. But the point here is that we have to create the materials in such a way that it facilitates and guidance for students to actually attack the material. Hindi pwedeng ilalagay mo lang sa material mo, read the selection below. Aba, paano? Ang tanong nga dun sa bata, paano ko ito atakihin? Ano bang dapat basahin ko dito? Anong impormasyon na dapat intindihin? Okay, so organize the information in such a way, that it facilitates the actual understanding, extraction of information text, thereby helping our students at home without the presence of the teacher go through the step-by-step process of extracting and understanding informational text. And one of the challenges there is that we can also probably enlist the help of our parents. And I think it's high time for for educators to include parents in the educational process. I know that a lot of parents out there may have their own misconceptions of how informational texts are understood. Some of them, oh, basahin mo lang yung, kung libre ka, o gawin mo lang dyan, basahin mo lang yung katapusan, yun, maintindihan mo na lahat. Well, it could facilitate, but cannot be just the only technique for attacking informational text or for the whole book. Okay, medyo mahirap po yun. Kung it worked for the parents, it may not work for the kids. My point here is that the more strategies and techniques we can provide our students, the better it is for our students to choose which of these techniques and strategies would work for them individually. All right. It is still important for us teachers to help our students be selective on what strategies presented to them by the teachers through the materials, and choose which one is most appropriate for their own styles and which is more effective for them. With that being said, thank you very much. I know we have a short time, but I just focus on the skills of teaching informational text. And if you want to know more about how about narrative text, I already have a session in that last week. I have a session on teaching narrative text, and we want to review that. But I just give you, I know that by giving this topic to you, there are more specific questions you would like to ask. Please do not hesitate to suggest more specific topics in the comments below, so that the team of the Educational Service of Vibal Group can come up with support webinars later on, so that these questions will be addressed and help you become better equipped teachers, especially now with the pandemic. Well, I think it's going to last a bit longer until probably the middle or the early quarters of next year. With that, I hope to see you again this evening at 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock about transitioning what we have discussed today to comprehending selections across subject areas. Thank you very much, and hope to see you again this evening. Good day.
There we have it. So, in behalf of Vibal Group Incorporated, I would like to thank you, Brother Ricky, for always giving us a very comprehensive and insightful learning session. It is really an honor to have you with us this morning.
Thank
And
you.
like what Brother Ricky mentioned a while ago, I hope to see you again this afternoon with our webinar series in YouTube and another session with Brother Ricky for our Learn at Home series at 7 p.m. tonight. And to all our Kabibal viewers, all thanks to you for your continuous patronage to our daily learning session. Muli maraming salamat at have a nice day to all of you. See you again later. Goodbye po.
Bye.